Hey, what's up guys, this is Kimsis. In this video, I'm gonna be showing you how to properly set up a WordPress site on Vultr Cloud VPS using one-click installation. Actually, I did this tutorial 2 years ago. At the time, Vultr used Ubuntu 16 for one-click installations, but it's now switched to the Ubuntu 18. The change of Linux kernel isn't the case, but during the months, I received a few comments from my viewers who told me that the previous tutorial was no longer working. Hence, I created this video to clarify the confusion of Vultr WordPress installation. The tutorial will guide you on everything regarding the WordPress app. Those include installing WordPress using Vultr app, setting up DNS record of your Vultr account, and point your domain name to Vultr name servers. And finally, how to properly configure virtual host for your WordPress site. There are more works to do in the tutorials, so let's get started. Now I'm on the homepage of Vultr Cloud VPS. I've been already logged in my account. You can see on the screen. I have my account button on the upper right of the homepage. I click on the button to view my account dashboard. On the product page, I click on the plus icon to deploy a new server or a VPS instance. On deploy new instance page, under the server location section, I choose New York, New Jersey as the location of the new servers. Under the server type section, I click on application tab to view more options. Exactly, I'm gonna install a WordPress app, so I choose WordPress from the application list. Under the server size section, I choose $5 per month. Actually, you can go with the higher price if you demand higher performance. However, the $5 VPS instance is more than enough for a small business or a personal blog. I'm gonna enable IP version 6 under the additional feature sections. Under the server hostname and label sections, I input chumness.xyz in the hostname input field. The tag automatically pop up in another input field. Finally, I click on the deploy new button to deploy a new server or VPS instance. Guys, deploying a new server will take a few minutes, so I put the video recording and come back after the process is complete. Hey guys, I'm back. As you can see on the screen, the new server has already deployed on my Vultr account. I click on manage to view the current server information. As you can see on the screen, I have two different login credentials, the server login and the application login credentials. Under the application information section, I have the application login credentials such as username and password of the HTTP authentication with the WordPress login URL. Some folks compute that the username and password is WordPress login credentials, so they often complain me about login issues. Despite the login credentials, Vultr has some official instructions about setting up the DNS record, such as pointing the A record to the current VPS instance. The most important information I'm gonna point out is the official document of the one-click WordPress. Obviously, I'm strongly suggest reading the document if you've never done that before. While reading the application information in your Vultr account, a copy of the information was sent to your inbox. Here I received similar information from Vultr. However, the username and password of the HTTP authentication didn't reveal in the emails. I go back to my Vultr account, then I open the provided URLs of the WordPress dashboard in a new tab of the web browser. As you can see in the browser, I reach a broken page. By default, Vultr uses HTTPS protocol for the WordPress installation, so it caused the SSL certificate issue. I should have to access the WordPress site using HTTP instead of HTTPS protocols. In the address bar of the web browser, I delete S from the HTTP protocols, then hit enter to access the WordPress site again. The HTTP authentication form required for the process, so I had to fill out the correct credential in order to access the WP admin slash. The HTTP authentication account credentials should be in my Vultr account, so I go back to the Vultr account to get the credential information. Under the application information section, I copy the username and paste it in the username input field of the HTTP authentication form. I do the same process for the password field. I copy the password then paste it into the password field of the HTTP authentication form. I click on the login button to continue to the WP admin of the WordPress site. WordPress bring me up an installation page. Of course, Vultr only set up the server environment for the WordPress installation, but I have to complete the installation process myself. On the WordPress installation page, I click on the continue button to continue the installation process. WordPress asks me for the required information in a form. I have to fill out the form in order to complete the installation process. In the site title input fields, I input Jomnest communities as the title of the WordPress site. In the username input fields, I use Jomnest as the admin username of the site. I copy the generated password to my clipboard. Then I open a new text file. In the text editors, I save the username and password of the WordPress administrator account. Again, on the WordPress installation page, I input my email address in your email input fields. I click on the checkbox option so my WordPress site won't indexed by the search engine. The option helps with preventing search engine from indexing the under construction site. Once I finish everything of the WordPress setup, I can later uncheck the option in the WordPress backend dashboard. Eventually, I click on the install WordPress button to install the WordPress site. The installation finished, I click on the login button to log in the WordPress dashboard. In the WordPress login form, I input my username and password. Of course, the WordPress login credentials should be in the text files where I saved in the previous step. Make sure you save yours. I click on the login button to log in the backend dashboard. As you can see on the screen, I'm now on the WordPress dashboard. From the admin menus, I choose visit sites to view the front end page of the WordPress site. If you look at the address bar of the web browsers, WordPress serves under the IP address of the server or VPS instance. I should have to change the IP address to my domain name, which is jomnest.advice. You can switch from the IP base to your domain name in 3 steps. First off, you have to set up the DNS record of the preferred domain name in your voice account. Next, you have to point the name server of your domain name to the name server of voice account. Finally, you have to change the WordPress address and site address option in your WordPress site. Okay, let me show you in practice. Here I go back to my voice account. I click on the product icon to view the product page. On the product page, I click on DNS tab to view the DNS settings. On the DNS page, I click on add domain button to add a new domain to my voice account. In the domain input fields, I input jomnest.advice, which is my preferred domain name for the WordPress site. I go back to the WordPress site tab to copy the IP address of the WordPress site. Then I paste the IP address in another input field. Of course, I don't need the slash and the HTTP protocol, so allow me to eliminate this stuff. I click on the add button to add the domain name to my voice account. After adding the domain name, as you can see on the screen, Voice set up the DNS record for the current domain name for me. I have a record point to the IP address of the VPS instance. I have a wildcard CNAME point to the domain name, which is jomnest.advice. And finally, I have 2 name server pointed to the host name of my voice server. The DNS record was already set up on my voice accounts, so the next step is to point the name server from my domain register to the name server of my voice account. Since I register the domain name in GoDaddy, the domain configuration should be in my GoDaddy account. As you can see on the screen, I log in my GoDaddy account as my profile name shows up on the upper right of the homepage. I click on the profile name, then choose Visit My Account button from the submenu context. On the GoDaddy product page, I have 2 domain names registered in my GoDaddy account. I click on the DNS button of jomnest.advice to view the DNS settings. On the DNS management page, under the name server section, I click on the change button to change the current setting. Under choose your new server name type, I choose custom from the list. After select the option, the name server input field show up. I go back to my voice account, then I copy the primary name servers from the DNS record of my voice account. On the GoDaddy DNS management page, I paste name server in the input field. I repeat the same process for the secondary name servers. I just copy the name server from my voice DNS record and pass it in another input field. I click on the save button to save the DNS record. GoDaddy notify me the requirement of changing the DNS record. Nothing important here, but make sure you are aware of the notifications. Changing of the DNS record needs at least a few hours, so I push the video recording and come back after everything is in place. Guys, welcome back to the tutorial. The DNS record should be in place now. You can use DNS lookup to check the current settings of your domain name. In the address bar of the Chrome browsers, I type DNS lookup, then hit enter to search for the tools. Here it listed on the top of the search engine. I click on the link to view the website. In the domain input fields, I input jomnest.advice, then click on the DNS lookup button to check the DNS settings of the domain name. As shown up on the screen, I have an A record point to the IP address of my VPS instance. What's more, over here, the DNS record was reported by voice name servers. Everything appears to be working correctly. In the address bar of the browsers, I input jomnest.advice, then hit enter to access the WordPress site. Bingo! The WordPress site is now serving under jomnest.advice wordpress.xyz domain. If you go to another tab, I have the same WordPress site that is serving under the IP address of the VPS then. I refresh the tab to make sure it's still working. Of course it is. Let me rearrange the tabs so you can easily look at them. Here is jobnest.xyz and here is another WordPress site that serves under the IP address of the VPS instance. These two websites are the same website but just host under two different addresses. On jobnest.xyz tab, I access to the backend address by extending the URL with wp admin/. The HTTP authentication form show up in the browser. Exactly, I have to input the correct username and password in order to access the wp admin URLs or the backend area of the WordPress site. Again, I go back to my voice account. I click on product icon to view the product settings. On the product page, I click on jobnest.xyz roles to view the server information. On the server information page, under the application information sections, I copy the username, then pass it in the username input fields of the HTTP authentication form. I repeat the same process for the password input fields. I just copy the password from my server information page, then pass it in the HTTP authentication form. I click on the login button to access the WP admin URLs or the WordPress site. Another login form show up in the browsers. Of course, I logged in once a moment ago, but it's the HTTP authentication. The HTTP authentication is the security levels of the nginx web servers. By default, when using one-click installation, voice set up the HTTP authentication to secure the sensitive request of the WordPress site. This login form, however, is belong to the WordPress authentication. So please don't be confused between the HTTP authentication and WordPress authentication. Another important thing I want to point out here is the domain URL. As you can see in the address bar of the browsers, the domain URL changed from jobnest.xyz to the IP address of the VPS instance. This because voice set the URL of WordPress address and blog address to the IP address in the WordPress option. I have to change the setting option to jobnest.xyz in order to make the domain name properly work with the WordPress site. I hope I make a clear explanation here. I'm now gonna log in the backend dashboard. As you can see on the screen, my admin username already pop up in the login form, so I only need the password for the user account. I open the text file where I saved my admin username and password in the previous step. In the text file, I copy the password then paste it in the password input field. Next, I click on the login button to log in the backend dashboard of the WordPress site. On the WordPress dashboard, I select setting from the admin menus, then choose general from the submenu context. As you can see on the screen, the WordPress address and site address were set to IP address of the VPS instance. I change the both option to jobnest.xyz, then click on the Save Change button to update the setting option. WordPress logged me out the backend dashboard for the security reasons. However, the WordPress site URLs change back to jobnest.xyz. If you look at the WordPress site URLs in the address bar of the web browsers, I received a few complaints from the viewer regarding this logout process. The viewer told me that they could not log back in the WordPress site after they were logged out. I don't think changing the WordPress address and site address is the problem of the case, but the confuse between the HTTP authentication and the WordPress authentication. Hence, make sure you use the correct username and password to log into your WordPress site. I'm gonna use the username and password in the text files to log back in again. Bingo! I now log back in the WordPress dashboard. From the admin bar, I choose visit site from the submenu context to the front end site. There we go. The WordPress site is fully worked with jobnest.xyz domain name. Here is the IP-based WordPress site that is the same WordPress site to jobnest.xyz. In fact, you should redirect the IP-based WordPress site to jobnest.xyz, or you can deny user accessing the website through the IP address of the VPS instance. Unfortunately, I'm not gonna talk about the redirecting and denying of user accessing the server IPs in this tutorial. However, I'm gonna focus on additional configurations that might be necessary for WordPress app on voice. I go back to my voice account. Under the application information section, we have a provided document related to WordPress app. I open the document in a new tab of the browsers. As you can see in the document, it has some instruction relating to changing the WordPress address and site address where we did in the previous step. In addition to the about configuration, voice suggests changing the default server name from underscore to a preferred domain name. The configuration is optional but strongly recommended. Change the default server name will be helpful when you later want to install Let's Encrypt as a certificate or mail servers on the VPS instance. Thus, I'm gonna follow the instructions and show you how to change the default server name and remove the WP login prompt. Because editing the virtual host configurations can be done on the servers, I'm gonna connect to the VPS instance using a client called Putty. I open the Start menu then choose Putty from the submenu context. If you not already installed Putty as a client tool on your computer, please find the download link down there in the description. I go to my voice account and click on the copy IP address icon to copy the IP address of the VPS instance. On the Putty configuration windows, I pass the IP address in the hostname input field. Under the save session sections, I input chumness.exe in the input field. Then I click on the save button to save the current session. Lastly, I click on the open button to open the connection. Putty bring me up a terminal windows with a security alert. On the security alert dialog box, I click on yes button to continue the connection. Putty asks me for the username to be logged in. In this case, I input root, then hit enter to log in as the root user. Again, Putty asks me for the password of the root users. I go back to my voice account, then I click on the copy password icon to copy the root password to my clipboard. On the terminal windows, I right click on the black areas to pass the root password, then hit enter to log in the VPS instance. Bingos, I successfully log into my VPS instance. As you can see in the terminal windows, at the last line, I have my username and hostname. Guys, the font of the terminal window is a bit small. I understand you now find difficult to read the inside content. Hence, allow me to enlarge the font size so you'll be happier to follow what I'm doing in this tutorial. I right click on the title of the terminal windows, then choose change settings from the submenu context. On Putty reconfiguration windows, I select apparent from the list, then click on the change button and the font settings section. On the font dialog box, I choose custom 16 points, then click on the OK button to set the font properties. On Putty reconfiguration windows, I click on the apply button to apply the new setting. Whilst the terminal is now looking better, I go back to the voice one-click WordPress document, then copy the command line from the document. On the terminal windows, I right-click on the black area to paste the command line in the terminal. By default, voice use Vim editors, but I prefer Vim, so I delete M from the line. I hit enter to execute the command line. In the text editors, add server name parameters. I press I to view insert mode, then I change the value from underscore to chumness.exe. I press escape to exit the insert mode, then I type :h, then hit enter to exit and save the configuration. Again, I go back to voice official document and copy the command line. This time I need to change the virtual host configuration for the HTTPS version. On the terminal windows, I right click on the flag area to pass the command in the terminals. As I did before, I change Vim to read, then hit enter to edit the virtual host files. In the text editors, add the server name parameters. I change the value from underscore to chumness.exe. I save and exit the editors. I need to restart the nginx service in order to put everything in place. Hence, I go to the official document one more time for the command line. On the terminal windows, I right click on the black area to pass the command in the terminal windows. I hit enter to restart the nginx service. Bingos, the nginx service restarted without issues. That means we done the step. Please look at another suggestion, removing WP admin login prompt or the HTTP authentication. By default, void add the HTTP authentication to enhance the security levels of the WordPress site. The HTTP authentication, on the other hand, is annoying or cause issues when implement multi-user or e-commerce function. For instance, you have to share the HTTP authentication account credentials to all the users of the WordPress site. What's more, your customer needs the account credentials in order to purchase any product on the WordPress site. Hence, it requires to remove the WP admin login prompt or the HTTP authentication if you plan to implement WooCommerce or multi-user. I go back to the WordPress site. As you can see in the browsers, the admin bar is showing up on the top of chumness.exe. That means I'm currently logging in the WordPress site. I'm gonna log out the WordPress site to show the WP admin login prompt. On the profile menus, I select log out from the submenu context. In the address bar of the web browsers, I go to chumness.exe/WP admin. But the HTTP authentication form didn't show up because I did log in one before, so the browser can't catch my account credentials. I have to clear the browser cache in order to re-authenticate the HTTP request. I press Ctrl and Delete on my keyboard to clear the browser cache. On the Clear Browser Data dialog box, I click on the Clear Data button to delete the browser cache. Okay, I'm done. I go back to the WordPress tab and access the WP admin again. There we go. The HTTP authentication form or the WP admin login prompt is now showing up. If I click on the cancel button, I read the 4.1 error page. Of course, that's what I expected. Again, I go to the official document for the command line. I copy the command line from the official document, then right click on the plagiaries, pass the command in the terminal windows. This command is used to create a backup of all virtual host files in the conf.d directory. I hit enter to execute the command. I go back to the official document again. This time I copy the location of the virtual host files that we edited edited in the previous step. I right click on the black area to pass the file location string in the terminal windows. I type this in front of the string, then hit enter to edit the virtual hop files. In the text editors, I type /alt, then hit enter to search for the alt basic parameters. I press I on the keyboard to view the insert mode, then I comment out the alt parameter lines. I press escape to exit the insert mode, then I type :H and hit enter to save and exit the editors. I press arrow up on my keyboard to view the previous command line. This time I'm gonna edit the virtual hop files for the HTTPS version. I hit enter to edit the files. I do the same process to the previous step. In the text editors, I type / and alt, then hit enter to search for the alt basic parameters. I comment out the alt basic parameter line, then save and exit the editors. To put everything in place, I have to restart the nginx with. Again, I go to the official document for the command line. In the document, I copy the command line, then pass it in the terminal windows. I hit enter to execute the command line. There we go. The nginx switch restarted. I go back to WordPress tab, then refresh the browser. Bingo! I now can access the WordPress login form without the HTTP authentication required. Guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you found something useful in the tutorials. If you have any question or suggestion, let me know through the below comment. I'll try to respond to the comment as soon as possible. Hit thumb up and share the video if you enjoyed the tutorials. What's more, I leave my affiliate links down there in the description. Please consider using the affiliate links if you want to go with Vultr VPS. The link won't add any additional fees, but you receive $50 free credit in your account after the first deposit. Lastly, I plan to create more tutorials related to voice one-click installation, so make sure you subscribe the channels and click on the bell icon. See you again in the next tutorials. Bye!